AEW versus WWE NXT. Which pro wrestling group will lead pro wrestling's future for the next 20 years? That's the topic of debate. I'll be taking, my name is Mike Messier. I've subscribed to Mike Messier YouTube channel. My friend and worthy opponent is Tantalizing Tony. He'll be taking on the WWE NXT side of the story. Tantalizing Tony, take a moment to tell us about your YouTube page and what you've been up to, my friend.
What am I up to? I'm up to nothing but wrestling. Wrestling's my life. It's all day long, 24 hours a day. If I'm not at work and I'm not at home with the kids, I'm talking about wrestling, whether it be AEW, WWE, NXT, WCW, GCW, MLW, and it goes on and on. NYWC, the list goes on and on and on. But my YouTube channel is Tantalizing Tony, the same as you see my name in the corner there. And I also have new merchandise, as you can see. This is
nice
brand
shirt.
new.
Oh, that's awesome. Stay tantalizing.
This is my hashtag. This is my hashtag. Stay tantalizing shirt. This is my catchphrase. Teesprings.com and the name Tantalizing Tony. You can get one of these for $24.99. Thanks a lot.
Well, we had some people that saw our first conversation, which was kind of I labeled it as an old school WWF, your time in ECW as part of the ring crew, training to be a wrestler, going to the early Raws, all the WrestleManias you've attended, and your coverage of the GCW Matt Cardona, Nick Gage title change. And I'm going to allow that the viewers here, and we had some viewers that are interested in this debate, by all means, if you've got a question for either one of us, just type in something like question for Mike, question for Tony, or a comment or a statement, and we'll try to integrate those comments into our debate. So here is once again, the topic of the debate is WWE/NXT or AEW, which is All Elite Wrestling. And let's give our backgrounds first. Tony, I'll start. My first pro wrestling live show, first TV show, it was all WWF, World Wrestling Federation. And for several years, I was watching WWF, but I was intrigued by these Pro Wrestling Illustrated, Sports Review Wrestling, the Wrestler Inside Wrestling, these black and white, for the most part, magazines. The photos were black and white is what I'm saying. The PWI had the color insert, the color photos on the cover. But it was like this, reading about Paul Orndorff versus Ric Flair in Atlanta's Omni, or Andre the Giant wins a battle royal in the AWA. And Rick Martel and Cowboy Bob Orton have a classic match in St. Louis that goes to a draw, and both men are better for it. And the way that these wrestling magazines described other wrestling companies besides the WWF, it was like this exotic, wild, wild west world of professional wrestling. I often tell the story of bringing a wrestling magazine to elementary school and a black and white photograph of Killer Tim Brooks taking a bull rope and rubbing it across the forehead of Bobby Jaggers and getting blood to pour down his face. And my sixth grade teacher, Mr. Rafalco, asking me what I was reading during the reading time in class. And I said, this. And I showed him the magazine and Killer Tim Brooks ripping this guy's forehead open. And the teacher was concerned. He called my mom. So my point is, I guess I was just born to be I do like WWF, don't get me wrong. I've been to a Saturday Night's Main Event in person. I've been to many pro wrestling shows with WWF. But there's always been something about the other side of the tracks, the other stuff. ECW, Barely Legal, Dragon Gate Pro, Top Rope Promotions, WCW, and here we are in 2021 with AEW. And what got me to finally go to one of these AEW shows was the Brody Lee tribute show. When I saw the Brody Lee tribute show and how it was handled, and I kind of got in this weird state of mind for a couple of years, like Jim Cornette always says, don't go to a show unless you're booked. So I was kind of like not going to AEW in person because I didn't want to buy a ticket. I wanted to be a special guest or something. Then I said, you know what? Life's too short. These people are putting on good shows right here in person. Let me go check out AEW. I'll buy a ticket like everybody else. I bought one of those, they called it like a plan, like 4 or 5 shows in a row. Mm-hmm. And then I kept doing that and doing that. And I got a seat that I liked. I started taking phone camera footage. People started responding to the phone camera footage. And I got a couple of perks. I got a free show. There was a dispute with Ticketmaster. They let me into one of their shows for free, which was nice. And even this T-shirt I got for free, because during the AEW broadcast on television, when they had the picture-in-picture contest, I won this T-shirt and a pair of sunglasses for free. So I found the AEW experience, for me, to be pretty fan-friendly during this time of worldwide situations. I don't like to use the C word, but during this time, it's been a fun outlet for me to go see the shows in person. And that's my background. Now I'm going to allow you to do no debate first. This is not a debate section, just the background of you and WWE, AEW, and even thoughts on AEW as we get started. Your background, Tony.
So let me start with AEW first, since you touched on that. I was against AEW from day one. Shout out to my friend Paul Laurier, who might be watching this. He is the one who told me, give it a chance, Tony. Being that I'm a former independent wrestler, I'm a former wrestler from a small organization, and I was so big on WWF at the time, now WWE, is that I would close everything else out except them, because they were right what's in your face. They had the pageantry. They had the the pomp and circumstance, if you will. So yeah, my background, I'm 53 years old. Been watching wrestling since I was a little kid. Like I told you in the last time we talked, Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson versus the Samoans really got me turned on, just because I saw two guys in the ring that looked like me. I was like, wow, I could do that one day. So I mean, I've just been watching it ever since. Paul Orndorff, one of my favorites. Like yours, the Magnificent Morocco. He was also the Rock Don Morocco. And of course, my two all-time favorites, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and the Macho Man Randy Savage. Those guys really turned it on for me, made me a WWF/WWE guy. I'm not against any organization, WCW, NWA, USWA, WCCW, all those organizations, UWF. I watched it all, but been a WWF guy since I was a kid. I'm from New York. Was at the Garden every first Monday of the month. I was at the first Monday Night Raw all the time at the Manhattan Center. So WWF has been my life. So that's my background. And and I'm not a Hulk Hogan fan, which is weird because Hogan really carried the company on his shoulders for a while. But even I was always the guy that rooted against Hulk Hogan, was hoping that he would lose, So.
Yeah. Now, I just, as a quick aside, I said in my Paul Orndorff video that Paul Orndorff clotheslining Hogan was like when I turned heel as a fan, officially, when that clothesline on Saturday morning after that match against Bundy and Studd. Before we get into our official debate topics, there's some comments here. Austin says he's casting his vote for AEW. A quick vote for AEW from Austin. Thanks, Austin. Stick around. Eric, who really enjoyed our first interview, says, hey, Tony, what do you like about Cardona? Now, this is off the topic, but that's okay. I want to take that question. Tony, that's your question. What do you like about Matt Cardona, the current GCW champion?
What's not to like about Matt Cardona, formerly known as Woo Woo Woo, you know it, Zack Ryder. Matt Cardona did something that a lot of wrestlers cannot do. He took everything that he learned in the WWE and he took it to the next level. He didn't shun it. He didn't put it in the back burner. He flipped it. He trolled the GCW fans with the woo woo woo, with the GCW universe. He turned complete heel. He showed that WWE had a star, had a main event star the whole time, but because of their narrow-mindedness, and I'm a WWE guy, but we know how booking goes there, that they dropped the ball with Matt Cardona. So I think Matt Cardona right now is maybe the number one heel in the business, equal to Roman Reigns. He might not have the notoriety and the visibility that Roman has, but bar none, Matt Cardona has showed that he is a main event player.
Here's a follow-up question for me on that before we get into our official debate topic. How does one watch GCW, Tony? I mean, I know that you've got clips and you've got some special Tantalizing Tony on Tantalizing Tony YouTube channel, but if someone wanted to watch GCW, do they have a weekly show or on Fight, or how does it work?
I know they're on Fight TV. They do Fight TV on demand. They don't have a weekly show as of yet. I just go to the website, go to GCW. I believe it's GCW.com. Let me check it real quick. And look it up. And there's clips all on YouTube, of course. But yeah, GCW dot. No, that's not. No, that's not it. I don't want to slow you down, but and my producer's upstairs. But I just search the internet for any GCW show, and it's a great thing. It's such a great alternative. You know, people say, "Oh, they're trying to be something like ECW." No, they're their own company. Just because you're a hardcore match doesn't mean you're copying over somebody else. It just means you're taking it to the next level. Wrestling evolves over time. And by the way, Eric's a great guy. I talk to Eric all the time. He friended me after he saw the show. So Eric, thanks a lot for that question, man. I appreciate your support, man. You're a great fan, and it's great to talk to you.
Yeah, he's a cool guy, and Eric's been supplying me with links. Now I want to get to Austin. Austin says AEW. He's put his vote in early. Thank you, Austin. And Austin has a statement, and WWE has way too many camera jumps. It literally gives me motion sickness sometimes. So let's make our first topic, our subtopic, production values. And Tony, I guess I'm going to give this one to you because this is kind of a question or a statement on WWE camera jumps. And people have been talking about this with some of the run-ins and some of the after-match attacks. I think I could be wrong, but the first time I remember hearing about this was maybe with Retribution or with Seth Rollins attacking Roman Reigns, that they felt that what's going on with the camera work? That's about a year ago that people started saying stuff on Twitter and Facebook like, what's with the WWE camera work now? It seems like it's jitter happy. What do you think?
I got to agree with that. I think they have made some changes that are not good for the product. I think what their thought process is they want to get more fan interaction, get you more in the feel as if you're at ringside. So, you know, you don't see everything when you're at ringside. You see what's going on here, but you might miss something because the ring post is in the way. They want to see fan reactions. And then when you got the Thunderdome, it's so tough because you don't have the fans in the building. So I think what they were trying to do is bring you in more. So I definitely think that it might be a little jittery, and it definitely could be more solid where the turns of the camera, you know, from camera 1 to 2 or the main camera are much better. But I get what they were trying to do. I can't disagree with Austin. Little jittery and is a little off-putting, but I know where they're coming from, so I can deal with it.
Let's get into production values. So we'll start with AEW and WWE production values. I'm taking the AEW side, so here is my pro AEW production values. Here we go. The true test for both companies, in my opinion, a true test, not the ultimate test, but test, this worldwide situation. What do you do from here? Now, the way that the scheduling worked on just happened to be the calendar in 2020, it must have been early March 2020, AEW had the first live show after the NBA shut down, which was basically the universal everything's on pause. I had a theater festival that was scheduled. The day after the NBA shut down, I shut down. I thought, man, you know, I'm a minuscule, a dot compared to the money that the NBA is going to make or lose for shutting down. So I've got to shut down, right? So the next week comes and you see the Elite. You see Kenny Omega, I think Cody, the Young Bucks. They're all in that ring, and they're talking from Daly's place, you know, 15 minutes from where I live. And they're being very honest and saying, we don't know what's going on. The world is changing. It's a scary time, but the show's going on. And they're doing a show in the empty Daly's place, Jacksonville, Florida, 15 minutes from where I currently live. And here's what I think the WWE made a mistake, if I may. The WWE, did not want to be seen as the copycat because for whatever reason, they didn't have a show that night, or perhaps their show was pre-taped the week before. So the WWE is watching AEW and they're doing this empty arena show, but the wrestlers at ringside, like the younger wrestlers or the wrestlers that weren't booked on the card or the B or C talent, they're at ringside with masks or socially distanced to give it a little bit of ambiance, a little bit of flavor. The WWE, in my opinion, being stubborn, not wanting to seem like a copycat, they go to the Performance Center, which is great, on with the show, but there's nothing. There's no people there, just the commentators. And it took, if my memory serves correct, months, like at least 2 months, something like that, for the WWE to start implementing their NXT roster as the fans, in quotes, the pseudo fans, right? In that time, the AEW shows with even 20, 30, 40 people at ringside watching the matches, that makes a heck of a difference. To me, it was very difficult to watch empty arena, empty performance center WWE. Eventually, once again, taking a note from the NBA, what the NBA did the screens first in the background, which I don't know if the WWE ever gave them credit for. The WWE engineered their Thunderdome with all the TVs. I actually, believe it or not, I actually thought Thunderdome was pretty cool. I thought it was pretty good, so I'll give them credit for doing that. But to me, most people preferred the live organic stuff. Eventually, AEW started selling tickets to the general public. And like I said, when Brody Lee passed and they had the tribute show, that's what inspired me to start going to the shows live. So my point is, as far as production, the big score for AEW comes with the fact that they were first with live people in the audience, whether they were other wrestlers or paid fans, socially distant, small amount of paid fans. They were first. WrestleMania was not first. Sorry to break it to everybody. They had Double or Nothing. They had the other pay-per-view with live people. And I think that, for me, is why they've really seized that opportunity to provide a more close to the real wrestling experiences you can get during the last 2 years, year and a half of this worldwide experience. Tony, your turn, my friend.
All the points you made are great, spot on. Where I disagree is this. I think because of the C word happening, there was so much trepidation and people unsure of how it would look with fans in the stands or with even wrestlers being at ringside. I think them going empty arena and putting the focus on the product was brave. Did it work? Not all the time, but to be at a wrestling match as a fan, you see the Rumble, how Drew McIntyre chucks Brock Lesnar and then he wins the whole thing after the fact, and how the crowd pops for him. And then you go from that to a wrestling match at WrestleMania where he wrestles in front of no one. Is it off-putting? Yes, but it's groundbreaking because they stuck to that. And maybe you're right. Maybe they didn't want to be a copycat, but I think they wanted to focus on the actual wrestling and the WWE superstars as well as the commentators. To me, Samoa Joe during the whole pandemic era as a ringside commentary, I think he shined. I think it showed that, yes, the fans are the nucleus of anything, especially the WWE universe, as they call them. But I think they gave us something different because people kept watching. I was against watching WrestleMania because of no fans. I was like, you know what? I can't miss WrestleMania. So you have points, but WWE, they're not copycats, as you want to know. Vince Jr. has a chip on his shoulder, and he's not going to follow he's a guy that beats his own drum, But I liked that it was empty for a while. And of course, the Thunderdome, they took it from, of course, the NBA, but they did something different with the Thunderdome that NBA didn't do. They did close-ups of the fans. People had their belts with them. There was more interaction with the Thunderdome than the NBA did. So you got to give them credit for that too. Not to mention they still had pyro, and it felt like you were there. Not 100%, but more than, to me, AEW. To me, AEW got stagnant with seeing Billy Gunn and his son in the front row week after week after week after week after week after week. Not that that wasn't great. Love Billy Gunn. Love the Gun Club. Love all the AEW wrestlers. But it was the same wrestlers in the same spot, in the same corner at every match, every week, week after week after week.
I will make a follow-up point that as someone who went to every WrestleMania live before 2020, that must have been heartbreaking for you, especially, Tony, just as an aside, right?
Heartbreaking is an understatement. There was rumblings and there was rumors and we heard nothing. So we thought, okay, we got a chance. And then when they made the announcement, I think I just sat on my couch for maybe the whole day. I know I didn't go to work that day. I sat on the couch and I was just like, not going to Florida, no hotel. This trip I planned after WrestleMania ends. I'm planning next WrestleMania already because I'm not a rich guy. I got to save money, hotel, airfare, accommodations. You know, sometimes I take one of my children. Sometimes I take the whole family, depending on where it is. Devastated. Now, technically, my streak's not broken because there were no fans in the stands. So any WrestleMania where there was attendance, I've been there. So that doesn't break my streak. But heartbreaking, yeah. I mean, I was getting phone calls from friends going, yo, you okay?
Right.
You all right? So it was rough. It was rough for me.
Might have a little bit of audio leak in the background, Tony, just if you can check that out. I'll check that out on my end, too. Okay, so now we've got production. Let me move on. Let me say this about real quick about WrestleMania. I do give them respect. I remember driving around Florida and being in a weird state of mind because it was a Tuesday and a Wednesday, I believe, that WrestleMania was being taped about 10 days in advance. And I'm thinking, I can't believe that WrestleMania is happening right now. And I'm like 2 hours away from it. But it was a Wednesday to Thursday or whatever afternoon. And, of course, we weren't allowed to go and see it. It was just – it's a weird deal. But once again, credit to both promotions from me. Sincerely to WWE as well. On with the show. Regardless, the show continued. Now, Tony, in fairness, I was going to lead with another subtopic, but since it's a fair debate here, do you have a subtopic that you'd like to go into?
I'd like to go to talent.
Okay, that works for me.
Talent roster to me is the mainstay of any organization. It doesn't matter if you can book bad, but if you have good matches, it can save a show. Talent can save bad booking as well. And to me, the WWE's talent pool, as much as mistakes as they make with not pushing some people and with releases, the WWE talent to me is far above any talent we've seen in any organization. Are there better wrestlers in some other places? Of course. But WWE has a knack of putting on a great show with the talent they have, and they definitely use every resource possible to make sure their talent is at the top of the game. Now let's talk about Roman Reigns real quick, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Roman Reigns is a prime example of talent that people would never give a chance to because they didn't like the way they were pushing him. But if you notice, Vince saw something in Roman Reigns that not a lot of people saw. He was great with the Shield. And yes, the fans were behind Roman when they should have turned him back at WrestleMania 30. But they didn't. But look at him now. Look 5 years later. Look at how Roman Reigns is the #1 heel in the business. He's the top talent in any organization. Doesn't matter he's not the best wrestler. Talent-wise, he puts asses in the seats. He gets you enthralled in the match. Love him or hate him, you got to watch him. Talent is everything. AEW talent, great wrestlers. To me, you can have too much talent sometimes. They have too much talent, and that's the problem with AEW. They have a massive overflow, not enough time to get everybody on the show. Yes, they have Dark. Yes, they have Rampage coming up. I get it. But you can put Roman on NXT. You can put Roman on Raw. You can put Bobby Lashley on Raw. Their main talent can carry any one of the shows. Same thing with NXT. Adam Cole, Baby, can come on any show and take over. Keith Lee's another one. Karrion Kross. To me, their major talent definitely overshadows AEW's talent.
Okay. We've got a statement from Major Carver. He does put asses in seats, though. The WWE was having a very hard time selling tickets until they announced the Summer of Cena. Now, I'm not sure what OT means. He does not put – so he's talking about Roman. He does not put asses in seats, though. The WWE was having a very hard time selling tickets until they announced the Summer of Cena. That's a direct attack on Roman Reigns from Major Carver to Tantalizing Tony, and out of fairness, we have to let Tantalizing Tony take that statement. What do you say?
Major Carver, I appreciate what you're saying. You're entitled to your opinion. But you're basing this on something that happened years ago. You're basing something like, oh, there's no ass in the seat. We're still in the midst of a pandemic where people are unsure of if they can go out or even buy a ticket, or should they go out and buy a ticket. Now they announced John Cena. That wasn't any rub against Roman Reigns. It's Cena. People probably figuring, hey, Cena's end of his career, and he's probably never going to see, you're not going to see Cena again in a ring on a regular basis. So yeah, did he get a bump when they put the that summer Cena's coming? Of course. But that's not against Roman Reigns. You don't know what the ticket sales would have been without Cena. We just know what they were with Cena. People are going to SummerSlam regardless of Cena shows or not.
Here we've got a couple of statements. Once again, Tony, the people are coming after you, Tony.
I like it.
Ian Patrick Gagnon, good buddy of mine in Florida, also originally from New England, says, well, let's go in order. Junior has too much of an ego to pass the company down to his children after he dies. That's Ian's first statement. And I'll give it with a little sass. Junior has too much of an ego to pass the company down to his children after he dies. Also, I think WWE obviously has a different business model now that revolves around dollars and cents and lucrative long-term deals with whoever will pay. I think they will sell eventually. Thoughts, Tony?
Ian has a great point. On the Tantalizing Tony channel, I said something about this today. Them unloading these wrestlers with these, these releases, it looks like selling might be in the future. So I kind of agree with Ian on that one. The business model does revolve around dollars and cents, but it's a business. It has to revolve around dollars and cents, or you don't make a profit. You made my point for me that they perfectly show you why they're the number one company in the business, because as much as you might be mad at them, or as much as you hate them, or as much as you don't think their product is good, you still watch and you still put your money out for their merch and their tickets and their title belts and everything else they have.
Wrestling Mastermind, which I like that name, he says, I agree. Mastermind, if you want to clarify what you agree with, because it might have been with Ian or Master Carver or one of us. So I just don't want to put words in the Wrestling Mastermind's mouth. Remember, we're streaming on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, my Facebook profile page. So we got into talent. So Tony, anything else you want to say about the WWE talent side before I answer this statement?
Also, the Performance Center, they've got a great farm system, if you want to call it a farm system. They build homegrown talent to take over the moniker. Braun Strowman is a perfect example of somebody that's homegrown. Why they release them, I don't know, but it shows that they can make stars. And I guess they feel if they can make stars, they can release them too. But if you think about it, the Performance Center is Triple H's baby, maybe one of the best things they ever did, where they have promo classes, where they teach you how to look at the camera. Here's the hard cam. Here's the moving cam. Here's how you cut a promo. Here's the cadence. So they build their talent from within, and I think that's also a great, factor in making them the number one company in the world.
I will take on the talent roster with your last point first. The Performance Center and NXT, which go hand in hand, and I do feel that when NXT became a cable television show, not just the network 1 hour a week, which was pretty obscure, let's be honest, but when they started doing television, USA Network, to directly compete with NXT, and with AEW, by the way, and I think they had a jump of 2 weeks in September of 2019. The NXT and even Cody Rhodes said it himself. Hey, WWE was doing NXT on Wednesday nights before we went on, television on the TNT network. So who's to say all's fair in love, war, and wrestling, right?
Right.
The other thing with that is how many days of the week are there? There's only 7 days in a week. So you can't say, well, either from either company's side, you can only avoid the competition so much, because eventually you got to put your show on the air at some point. And with all these, streaming and DVDRs and YouTube TVs, all these options we have, if people want to watch something, they'll figure out a way to watch it. Now, to get into the Performance Center point of this talent roster thing, I do think the Performance Center is an advantage for WWE to train wrestlers as they see them being made. However, I feel as a long-time wrestling fan, back to the territory days, what to me makes wrestling interesting is different styles. Abdullah the Butcher's got a different style than Terry Funk, has got a different style than Ken Patera, has got a different style than Bruiser Brody, has got a different style than Bruno Sammartino, Hulk Hogan, Bob Backlund, Ric Flair, the Road Warriors, and so on and so forth. Every once in a while, something like the Road Warriors as a tag team will come along, and that puts the power game into pro wrestling front and center in a way that it hadn't been done before in tag teams especially. The Steiners come in the early 90s, and suddenly this amateur thing is a big deal. I mean, they were kind of the predecessors to a Kurt Angle, and you could make a point. So for me, opening the floodgates that AEW Dark does and Dark Elevation, where a lot of times I'm seeing, because I did commentary for a wrestling show down here in Florida, you'll see some of these southern promotions. I don't know how it's happening, but they're calling Dustin or they're calling somebody over at AEW and getting some of their people to be squash people, right? But these squash guys and girls are getting a chance. They're getting some exposure. They know that they're making a risk, because if they go on television, if they look foolish, then they're not going to go very far. Think about the the Cody challenge when he was the TNT champion. And he did that open challenge. That was somewhat of a shoot. Not that the matches were a shoot, but the open challenge, they seemed to be actually fielding challenges from wrestlers, because they had that kind of Ultimate Warrior kind of throwback 80s guy. He was a one and done. I mean, he came in, he kind of made a splash. People took notice of him, but he was kind of a one and done. But who was not a one and done? Eddie Edwards. Eddie Edwards comes in. He's been a huge name on the independent scene for 15 or 20 years. Never got in with WWE. I'm not sure if he was ever I think he was with Impact Wrestling or TNA, but it wasn't like he was a central guy. But here he is against Cody. The match makes an impression. Next thing you know, he's under contract. They turn him babyface. He's a huge deal. It's two different styles. It's what's your flavor, chocolate or vanilla or pistachio. If you like the, hey, this is how Hunter's going to make you, and then Sean's going to throw his input in Florida, and then they're going to send you to Vince. And unfortunately for me, the McMeat puppet main roster grinder, Junior's going to fucking ruin these guys. But if you look over at AEW with Dark and Elevation, they put you in there, you get some TV time, you probably get beaten in 2 or 3 minutes or 5 minutes. But if you are a good person, they like you, you take your beating, like Brian Pillman Jr. went in, lost a couple of matches, then they find something for you. If there's a good fit, that's my retort to the talent roster.
All good points. I can't argue with you. You know your stuff.
Well, let me take it to one step further, because I didn't address the main roster. Talent for talent, you get guys like Bobby Lashley, Roman Reigns. These are guys that have – Roman Reigns is very interesting. He's the ultimate Vince creation. Never wrestled on the indies, comes from the family of Samoans. I believe Sika's his dad. He born and bred WWE. So that's exactly what Vince wants. Bobby Lashley, a little bit different. 5, 6, 7 years ago, Bobby Lashley was doing great things on Impact Wrestling. True. Only thing that wasn't good about Bobby was he was wearing that baseball hat all the time. So you couldn't see his face. It made no sense. You're on national television. Take your hat off. But Bobby Lashley's a great talent. You know, I don't want to harp on it too much. If you say – what I didn't answer was, who's a big star on AEW now? I'll be honest, guys. These are not particularly my type of wrestlers. If you were to say, Mike, let's see the Road Warriors 1984 or the Young Bucks 2021, I'm taking the Road Warriors 20 times out of 20. You know what I mean? But they're connecting with the audience of today. These type of guys are connecting with the audience of today. Adam Page is over. That's a homegrown talent. Darby Allin is over. He's a homegrown talent. And the respect they give to guys like Sting, Tully Blanchard, and Arn Anderson, as a longtime wrestling fan, that makes me feel good that there is some nod of respect to these older guys. They put them in nice managerial spots, And it's not like Mark Henry being embarrassed and humiliated by Randy Orton a few months ago. That's why some of these old timers, which I remember when they were young timers, but some of these guys like Paul White and Mark Henry are going to the Ellis Island of professional wrestling in AEW because they're tired of getting embarrassed and humiliated. That's my answer to the question. And let's see if we have any subtopics from the audience. If any of you fine folks, we appreciate you being here for this debate. We'll go to it next. Tony, do you have any suggestions for the next aspect of this debate we can handle?
No, but I just want to touch on one thing. You made a lot of good points, especially with the older guys leaving and going to AEW. That's just the way the business is. Of course, there's nothing for them to do. Vince feels there's nowhere for them to go. And of course, there is an alternative, but that's just what AEW is. It's an alternative. They're never going to reach the level, talent-wise, of WWE. I'm not saying wrestling-wise, talent-wise. You know, if you put the Street Profits in a match against the Young Bucks, you know, it's going to be a good match. Are either one of those guys going to sell out arenas? No. They're both going to be equal. But if you put Roman Reigns against Kenny Omega, and you have to, who are you going to put the shoulders on of who's going to sell them more merch? Who's going to really bring the ass to the seats? It's going to be Roman. As great as Kenny Omega is, as worldwide as Kenny Omega is, WWE is the big show. It's where everybody goes, whether you leave or you stay. That's where everybody strives to go to. Nobody strives to go to AEW. You go to AEW because now it's there and it's alternative. And yes, Tony Khan gives people chances. And yes, there's a respect factor. And yes, I believe the AEW does great things for wrestling. I'm not an AEW hater. I love them now. But I'm just saying, if you think as a whole, where you want to go, do you want to go to the Yankees or you want to go to the Mets? And WWE is the Yankees.
Ian Patrick Gagnon has got a strong take here, which we AEW is the only real pro wrestling company right now. WWE is barely wrestling anymore. Now, that's a strong words, but you know what? Ted Turner called me and he said, Vince, I'm in the pro wrestling business. And I said, Ted, that's great. I'm in the entertainment business. Now, to me, let's have a subtopic here of respect for the history of pro wrestling. My belief is that WWE 15 years ago, when they started doing all these DVDs of the Ric Flair, DVD compilations and stuff like that, that was pretty respectful. The DVD era, 2005 to maybe 2010, when they had the ECW compilation DVDs and the Ric Flair compilation DVDs, and even my favorite Brian Pillman 2-disc set, that was pretty respectful. The network, I thought, initially was very respectful to wrestling, the history of wrestling, beyond just the WWE. The AWA disc set was great. When they started doing things like Southpaw Championship Wrestling, that's when I questioned their respect for professional wrestling, because now you're mocking the Southern Territories, you're mocking the Memphis, you're mocking things like that. You're even mocking TBS Superstation with Southpaw Wrestling. I found it unwatchable that these wrestlers, and it's all a rib, brother. It's all funny, brother. I didn't find it funny. So, Tony, let's talk about respect. Who do you think has the more respect for the history of professional wrestling, WWE/NXT or AEW at this point?
That's a tough one. Now, I'm supposed to be a WWE guy right now, but respect factor-wise, I mean, I'm not going to come here and lie to everybody, lie to the fans, because that's not the kind of guy I am. Just because I'm pro WWE, I'm going to call a spade a spade. I think that AEW's, not just their wrestlers, not just their front office, not just everybody, just the fans have more respect as well. Just because it's more of it's the people's wrestling organization. I think that because WWE is such a big conglomerate, because they're so huge, that they've lost that feeling that made you get into wrestling in the first place. The respect of the guys that came before you, the old timers, hello sir, you go to the locker room, you shake hands. I think that AEW does do a much better job at that. Ian had made a point that about Big Show, Mark Henry, and Bray Wyatt all doing jobs or doing vignettes with Randy Orton and that they got humiliated. On that, I just want to say those guys know the storylines. They can say no. So anytime they got embarrassed by Randy Orton, it was part of the story, and they were trying to make Randy Orton strong. That's a storyline. You can't, I don't want to say that's why they left, but respect-wise, yeah, Vince, he has his ways about him, and we don't know Vince personally. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but from a layman's point, from a fan's perspective, I believe all the WWE wrestlers have respect for everybody else. The level is what's different, the level of respect. And I do think, and I hate to say this because I'm supposed to be debating for WWE, but I do believe that AEW gives the impression that their level of respect is a little bit higher than WWE's because of how they treat their veterans, the old timers, and just how they, they don't try to shy away that WWE does exist. Perfect example is JR. They still talk about the Hardy brothers. They still talk about Christian being a former world champion. So they still bring in aspects of the WWE to their product without naming them. WWE tries to shy away from that. They try to make like they're the only, they're the only kit and caboodle. And I don't like that about the WWE, but that's not the wrestler's fault. You got to realize when Vincent Kennedy McMahon is signing your paychecks and you're making six figures, and in some aspects, some instances, seven figures, and he's telling you, hey, keep this main line, keep the streamline, don't say wrestling, it's sports entertainment. You want that paycheck.
Wrestling Mastermind and Cucky Rhodes, I get the humor. I find it funny, but we can't put that up there. But good stuff from Cucky Rhodes with the humor. Wrestling Mastermind says, I feel WWE releasing people after the build and the star power they have makes AEW good, because most of AEW is WWE or rejected WWE people. And for example, John Moxley, I don't know if that's a joke, Job Moxley, he says, was a WWE star. That's what made AEW. That's actually pretty good for a promo if someone would call him Job Moxley. So here's the, I guess I'll take that as something I'll have to defend. The influx of WWE talent into AEW, does that put over former WWE guys? And initially, I would agree with Wrestling Mastermind. That was kind of a problem because you had your first champion was Chris Jericho beating a homegrown guy, Adam Page. So Chris Jericho, I think, was 47 at the time or 48, beating a guy 23 or 24 years younger than him for the first championship. That was before they actually went on a weekly show. That was on their pay-per-view before they had weekly TV. And then Moxley comes out at the end of that, if I'm not mistaken. And the first TNT champion was Cody, who in a sense is a former WWE guy, but he's really one of the forefathers of this company. And then you had Brody Lee, who obviously was a former WWE guy. The tag team thing was always pretty AEW, though, because the first champions were a surprise to me. Daniels and SCU. It was actually not even Daniels. It was Kazarian and Scorpio Sky. So, and then they lost to Omega and Page, who, blah, blah, blah. So the tag team, with the exception of FTR, has been pretty much homegrown talent. Here's the thing. Hulk Hogan and Hulkamania itself started really in the AWA with Vern Gagne. Vern Gagne was the one that said, let's make this guy a babyface, meaning Hogan, and let's sell T-shirts. If he's going to rip his T-shirt off and throw him to the crowd, we can make $10 a shot. And back then, it probably was $10 at an AWA show for a Hulk Hogan T-shirt. And Hulkamania was going strong for at least a year in '82 AWA before Hogan went over to WWF. And things like, if you're a fan of the Legion of Doom in 1990 WWF fighting with the natural disasters in Money Inc., well, did you watch the Road Warriors take on Doom and take on Tully and Arn and take on the Steiners at Starrcade 89? And did you watch the Road Warriors take on the Russians at the Great American Bash 85? That was all Jim Crockett Promotions.
Right.
So all these things of selling shoulder pads and selling, like the two little Road Warrior figures I got in the other room there, that's all from someone else. So I, knowing the history, and Tantalizing Tony knows the history, and most of you guys know the history of pro wrestling, Junior is always happy to make money off of somebody else's hard work or somebody else's idea. And if you listen to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard, especially the first couple of seasons, every time that Conrad would ask him a question, he'd say, well, whose idea was this? Whose idea was that? And the basic response is, I can't remember whose idea it was, but Vince took the credit. So to me, Vince Jr., as I like to say, he is a great producer because a great producer times gets to own the property and let other people, when their imaginations come up with all the great ideas, and you put the copyright on it. So there you have it. That's my long-winded take on the subtopic of WWE ex-talents going over to AEW. My opinion is everybody comes from somewhere, and aren't these guys supposed to be, quote, independent contractors? So there you go. Tony, any thoughts, follow up on what I just said?
This is a debate, but when you're right, you're right. Vince is a great poacher. He knows how to poach.
Right.
He poaches very well. It's what makes him a savvy businessman. And it might not be right to do these things, but it's what's successful. It's what got him his success. Hogan is an AWA talent, as was Rick Martel, as was Shawn Michaels. Vince has an ability to give more visibility to guys that weren't given a great platform. AW is great. AWA was great, but how many people were watching it? WWF had a show on every week, main TV, show no matter where you lived, there was a syndication. You could see it. And not to mention when Saturday night's main event took off right up in the Saturday Night Live time slot. Who was doing stuff like that? That was innovative. Not to mention Shotgun Saturday Night, which was craziness. It was like a dirty feel wrestling. It was like grungy and dirty, and it was crazy. But like Vince has that ability to, let's make this guy a star. Yeah, they might have built him, but we're gonna build him even higher. We're gonna top what they did. Vince is real good with that.
Well, Shotgun Saturday Night was a great show. It was short lived, but the early episodes felt very ECW-ish. And I think Vince Russo and you, as part of the ECW ring crew, Tony, know better than anyone else that both WCW and WWF poached ECW talent. But once again, this is a capitalist society, which I'm a capitalist, and it's also, these guys are supposed free agents, or they're not getting, for the most part, unless things have changed, they're not really getting guaranteed insurance. I didn't say guaranteed contracts. I said guaranteed insurance. You break a leg or you break your neck in somebody's wrestling ring, you're kind of at their mercy. Now in a case like Darren Drozdev, WWE has done right by the guy because they've given him paid work ever since. But I'm telling you, I wrestled a few matches, Tony, and I stopped wrestling because I'm like, if I get hurt, who's going to take care of me?
Yeah, it's not a joke. I had a match in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, back in '97 in a tag team match, and separated my shoulder. And I was a manager at the Gap, and I was out of work for 2 weeks, no insurance, and I couldn't go to my job because I couldn't lift the box, I couldn't do anything. So it's like, it's tough being a wrestler. It's tough being especially on the independent scene, because at least if you're in a big company, at least if you don't have insurance, you get the money to pay for the doctor. But when you're traveling like I was, 120 miles for one match to make $10 just to get, your face out there, it's tough, man.
Let's go through, we got about 10 minutes left, and actually we doubled the time of our show, which is great. Major Carver, do you want to take this comment? You want to read this one for us, buddy?
Yeah, WWE has a bigger platform. Obviously, when you have a company that has history of many years, your top star will draw more. AEW is a startup, but clearly they have made huge strides. And they have made huge strides. Major Carver, you're very intellectual with your comments. I got to give you props on that. And, of course, the platform that WWE has is huge. And, of course, the top star is going to draw more. But AEW is doing everything right when it comes to their whole production. It's baby steps. They cannot be WWE overnight. They cannot. It's going to take a while. Will they ever get to the level of WWE? No. But they can try, and I think that's what's going to make their company more popular. But like I said, WWF is such a juggernaut, such a conglomerate. It's just like they're like the aliens from Independence Day. They come and they just eat up all your natural resources and go to the next planet. And that's what WWF/E did. Took a territory, took the guys, boom, they're done. It went over and over and over. And then you got, WrestleMania.
Stephen Butler, I believe I have never seen a Stephen Butler comment before. Stephen, glad to have you with us. WWE will not take AEW seriously until Dynamite does Raw ratings numbers, much like Nitro went on their 83-week dominance back in the late 90s. Well, here's the thing, Stephen, if I may. I think WWE already takes AEW seriously, and here's the reason: money. The thing is, AEW does not need to be successful to stay in business. And interesting comment. You know why? The Khans have so much money. These guys own the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you know how the Khans make their money? Every time you or Tantalizing Tony or myself or anybody buys an automobile, there's some type of gizmo that attaches the bumper of that car to the body of the car. And Senior Khan, Tony's father, is the guy that invented that gizmo. And I'm pretty sure that any time a car is bought, which is how many cars are bought in one day, if you compound that by the world every single day, these guys are making money off of everybody. So when Vince McMahon buys a car or Triple H buys a car, they're putting money in Khan's pocket. Now, I just said a very generalized thing. Maybe if you look into the specifics of that device that's keeping the bumper to the car, it's more specific. And, I'm painting with broad strokes just for the time here. But the point is, they've got so much money. This thing is like a tax write-off. This thing is a play toy for this guy.
It's fun for them. It's a lot of fun for them. They're having a good time. Tony Khan's having a good time. I do want to say one thing about Steven's comment there. Ratings. A lot of people hang on ratings, but we got to realize this. This is not the 90s. And the way you watch TV and watch your shows are different. You have your phone. You have your tablet. You have YouTube. There are so many different ways on demand and DVR. There's so many different ways you watch your programming now. So are we going to have a ratings war? If you notice, if you watch any show, back in the 80s, MASH was the most watched television show. It had like 49 million viewers, right, in their season finale. Right now, if you get 6 million viewers to watch a season finale, you've won. Things have changed when it comes to TV, when it comes to platforms. There's so many. You got Hulu. There's so many different things and different ways to watch things. So I don't think ratings are important. What I think is important is merchandise. I think do a lot of things on merch and a lot of things based on just buzz. YouTube's huge. That's why we're here. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been watching YouTube since YouTube started, and look how YouTube's evolved. Look how I come home. I don't watch the news. I click on YouTube to see what's going on MSNBC or what's going on Fox to see what's happening with politics. I don't go to my television. I go to YouTube. I don't have a cable box. Guess what I have? YouTube TV. So everything's different, and the platforms are way different. So ratings to me aren't important.
Great response. Steven, stick around. I love your comments, man. Let's go back to Ian. And I have nothing against the WWE wrestlers because Tony is right. It's not their fault. It's the machine of WWE. And I'm going to Tony, you go ahead and say something, and I've got to say something about that too. Go ahead.
Ian, I want to tell you once again, all your comments all night are spot on, whether we agreed or we disagreed. That's what's great about wrestling. We can have that debate where I'll learn something from you and you'll learn something from me. But yeah, the machine of the WWE is what I'm talking about. They are a well-oiled machine. Do they fall? Do they have problems? Of course, every company does. But what they do that every company has failed to do, they are still around. AWA, great, gone. WCW, gone. And AEW, sad to say it, one day will be gone. ECW, gone. WWF/E, they will swallow you whole. Now, the one thing that AEW has going for them, I'll say two. One, Tony Khan, and two, Junior's age, Vince McMahon's age. At 75 years old, how much longer is he going to go? And there was a comment earlier saying about, will Vince pass the torch to Stephanie, to Triple H, to Shane? Will he swallow his pride? Will he put his ego to the side? And will he give them the company? And I gotta agree. There was Ian. I think that Vince might sell just because he doesn't want to go to his grave knowing his baby's been changed. I think he wants his legacy to be his legacy. It sounds crazy, but I can get it. But that's AEW's only shot.
I did how many guys, gals have come out of the Performance Center and really made an impact in the WWE? A lot of the guys in their mid-card main events are from the Indies or veterans. Major Carver, great point. And here's the thing. There's something going on, and my theory is this. I feel that Junior is having age issues, and he literally looks at the NXT talent as if they're coming in from some other territory. Like, you know, I'm trying to think of a good comparison, but it's like the Rebel Dick Slater. When Dick Slater came into the WWF in 1985 or 86, I think it was 86, he went from being a top guy in Bill Watts' Mid-South. He was a North American champion. He had Dark Journey. They had like what would be called an interracial relationship. And instead, they said, well, let's just take Dick Slater, give him a Confederate flag, make him the Rebel, and he'll be a mid-card guy that loses to Don Morocco on a Saturday night's main event in less than 5 minutes. Some push for your former UWF or Mid-South North American champion. When Junior takes in guys like Ronnie Garvin, comes in from the hottest angle of his career, punching Dusty Rhodes in the face at the Great American Bash. A 2-year-old Mike Messier is in the attendance for that. Ronnie Garvin's suddenly the #1 heel in the company, surpassing all of the Four Horsemen with one punch. And then he goes to AWA, becomes the TV champion, beats Greg Gagne, who's the promoter's son. And then next thing you know, well, Vince wants to get him because this 45-year-old Ronnie Garvin is somehow, who's 5'10", is getting heel heat in the two big oppositions, the NWA and the AWA back to back. He's wrestling on pay-per-view with the AWA TV title. This is Ronnie Garvin. This is old school stuff. What does Junior do? He brings him in and he feuds with Greg Valentine. Nothing against Greg Valentine, but he had already been beaten down by the WWE. He was already a lower mid-card guy at that point. And just Junior does not, he likes to buy the other kids' toys and break them. That's what the analogy is.
Think about all the guys that came out of Mid-South, like JYD, like, you know, like Great Dame Valentine. All these guys were just marginalized, brought as mid-carders because Vince took them, swallowed them up. But you know, it sounds terrible. And I'm probably going to get some heat for this, but it's what makes Vince successful. He finds a way to kill his talent, to show that this guy isn't what you think he is. Hey, he might have been a star, but now he's not a star. I say who's a star. So it is what it is. Vince has he has a knack of just taking talent and doing what he wants to do with it. You know, he wanted Hulk Hogan to be a star. He made Hulk Hogan a star. He wanted Ronnie Garvin to come over and make him rugged Ronnie Garvin, mid-card. Power.
Power. Here's a more modern example for everybody. And I'll give a positive and a negative just to be fair. AJ Styles, he's had the best run of his career in WWE at a relatively advanced age, in his 40s, early 40s. AJ Styles is doing bigger, getting more money, having great matches. Well done. Samoa Joe, not so much. X Division, you watch the best of X Division DVDs, you watch the best of Samoa Joe at Impact Wrestling. And the difference, in my opinion, Vince is a body guy. Samoa Joe, with the stocky build, it does not appeal to Junior. He likes his muscle men, and he kind of likes the Shawn Michaels thing. Like when you have a guy like AJ Styles, if you look at him, AJ Styles 2021 is kind of the same body type as Shawn Michaels, maybe 2004. Agreed. You know what I mean? And it's just a weird deal. Some guys are chosen and some guys are not. Let's bang through some of our more comments. It's been a very good Cucky Rhodes. Once again, I appreciate the humor. We just can't share that. Cucky, if you have anything you want to share, it's a little bit more safe. I'd rather share that. I just hit some weird button. Now I'm seeing a bunch of Jim Cornette is God stuff, but maybe that's – I don't know what I hit.
He's trolling us. This one guy's trolling us. He wants his 5 minutes of fame. So whoever you are, you got us. You trolled us. Oh my God, you came into a live stream and you put up your little funny words. Woo, you must be living in your mom's basement. Sorry, I'm not trying to mess the show up, but whoever does that, you got no time on your hands. How about you go outside and walk in the traffic?
Well, here's the thing. Out of respect to Bobby Eaton, I do want to mention this past week we lost Bobby Eaton. Beautiful, yes. Bobby Eaton. I did do a tribute video to Bobby Eaton, which has gotten some high marks, and the assassin, Jody Hamilton. To be honest, I know a little bit about Jody Hamilton. I remember the angle with Boogie Woogie Man Jimmy Valiant and the shaving of the beard. And I listened to, on the ad-free network, Conrad Thompson stuff, I listened to the Jody Hamilton interview with Dave Pencer, and that was all very good. Do you have any memories of the assassin? Tantalizing Tony?
I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I said, I don't lie to fans. I really don't. Like I'm a WWF guy from back in the day. So a lot of other guys, of course, Jimmy Valiant, Boogie Woogie, know him. But I heard of his passing, rest in peace, and of course, to beautiful Bobby Eaton, one of the great TV champions of all times. The Dangerous Alliance, of course, the Midnight Express, one half with Dennis Condrey and Sweet Stan Lane. Bobby Eaton, to me, underrated, never got the due he deserved. Rest in peace to both those guys.
Tantalizing Tony, I guess I have to wrap this up with one final question for both of us. Now, the topic of the debate, which company is the future of professional wrestling? Which company will lead the future of professional wrestling? And I'd like to think, well, you know what? Let me just ask that question to you. Which company, AEW or WWE, or do you have a different answer, will lead the next 20 years of professional wrestling?
In the event Vince McMahon doesn't sell, WWE will stay on top as long as there's wrestling. That's not saying that AEW isn't going to go to the next level and be great competition for them. But see, here's the thing about competition. We look at it and we ask ourselves, oh, let's beat them. This is great for the fans. A wrestling company like AEW that has young stars, that has older stars, that can give us an alternative to what we're watching on WWE with sports entertainment, we can see wrestling. But as a whole, and GCW is coming up there too, but as a whole, WWE, they're going to be the powerhouse for years to come. I think, when you see me at WrestleMania 85 or whatever WrestleMania is, you'll see that whoever the star is at the time, they will show that WWE is been on top from day one, and that's where they're going to stay.
I will say, since I'm on the AEW side, if one of these Jacksonville Jaguars cheerleaders will fuck Tony Khan on a regular basis, or one of these women's wrestlers will take Tony Khan and make a man out of him, then we might have AEW wrestling for a long time. I think that in some ways, this entire promotion is a way for Tony Khan to get laid, because he knows that wrestlers bring in good-looking women. They bring in these attractive women wrestlers. They bring in these cheerleaders for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'm hoping that this is like the Richie Rich who wants the cool friends. He wants the jock friends, right? So maybe the football players don't hang out with Tony because that's like his dad's deal. But he's got these wrestlers now, and hopefully, Pillman Jr. and Kenny Omega or somebody's taking this kid out for the night on the town and introducing him, because there's plenty of fun things to do in Jack. I'm just kidding to an extent, but in some ways I'm not. I mean, I think that Tony Khan is I'm happy that he's providing an alternative. I do think that this company, AEW, has more legs than, say, ECW or even WCW. And I'm hoping that AEW sticks around. I feel like they've been innovative. I feel like they're more in touch with today's wrestling fan. And guess what? That's not even me. Like if I had my druthers, we'd still be watching the Crockett Cup 2021, which I think the NWA has actually brought that back, as a matter of fact. Some nostalgia is a thing now too, which I think that AEW does well. Tantalizing Tony, I want to give you the last word, and then I'll do a quick end of the show. But Tantalizing Tony, any further thoughts on this AEW versus WWE NXT debate, or any other topics that have come up tonight, or anything else that we should mention before the night is over?
Just want to say, of course, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Mike. You are very knowledgeable in your wrestling. You have great points, great, insight on a lot of things. Everybody in the comments tonight, great points, whether you agreed or disagreed. It's what wrestling's about. We win. The fans win, no matter what. Because we've got wrestling on Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night with NXT UK. Friday, we got SmackDown, we got Rampage, you got MLW, you got GCW, you got NYWC. You got so many organizations and so many platforms to watch wrestling. Click on your computer, Google it, and you can find whatever you want to find. This is a great time to be a wrestling fan. AEW, they're not going away anytime soon. I love that Tony Khan has deep pockets. Maybe he's not getting laid. I don't know. But the point is this, is that as long as you got Cody, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Chris Jericho, and those guys trying to find a way to, maybe not beat Vince, but just show him, hey, look, we deserve value too. It's going to just up the game of every other organization as well as WWE. I hate to say this, and I don't want to be morbid, but Vince is going to be around forever, and maybe things will change. Triple H, to me, definitely has a lot of great ideas, and I think that when we get Triple H's full vision, I think that we're going to be very happy with the WWE product. You got to remember this, though. WrestleMania is a mainstay. SummerSlam, Survivor Series, the Rumble, Money in the Bank, all these pay-per-views. We know their names. We know the months they come on because we've been programmed, because WWE has had great programming over the time and time. Don't hate WWE. I get it. While some people are upset, I'm not happy with all the programming. I wish Raw was better. But remember this. Without the WWF/E, we might not be watching wrestling today. Might be dead and buried.
Well, Tantalizing Tony, like I said, I give the WWE a lot of credit for the initial WWE Network and the DVDs, and I'm sure that archiving all that footage was a challenge. And I remember back on Craigslist in the 2005 era, they were looking for people on Craigslist to come in and help archive all those mountains of footage. So I do give them credit for that. I don't know if, say, WCW had won the Wrestling Wars of the 90s, would they have done an equal or better job of chronicling all that footage if they had gotten the WWE stuff? Probably not, because wrestling was not a priority for Time Warner Turner Entertainment. So I tip off a hat to that. And most importantly, I tip my hat to you, buddy, and you and your producer daughter is doing a great job. Tantalizing Tony YouTube channel. I know that a lot of people are excited because there's always something going on in the world. Tantalizing Tony, hashtag stay tantalizing. And there is a UFC thing on tonight. I'm not an expert in UFC as I used to be. I do have the Randy Couture interview on Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. Tantalizing Tony, what's next for you in professional wrestling? What shows? And I think I saw you. Don't tell me who won, because I'm just starting to watch. Was it Battle Riot 3? Am I not mistaken that you're on camera in the first 2 minutes of that show?
Yes, sir.
You wearing like a red shirt or something?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I saw that, and don't tell me who won, because I'm going to watch that. I got to watch Eric's suggestions. Eric's been sending me links to GCW. I want to catch more into that. Hey, GCW, if you do get weekly television, why not hire Tantalizing Tony and Mike Messier, your commentary team? I think we could handle it.
Definitely.
Okay, subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. This has been a cross promotion with Tantalizing Tony YouTube channel. It's a great wrestling debate. We appreciate it so much. Awesome tattoo, man. And thank you, Tony. We appreciate you being here. And everybody have a great weekend. Mike Messier, subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. This has been your AEW versus NXT WWE debate. Good night, everyone.
See you later.